Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Nighttime. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Brownrigg, and today on this episode we're going to be talking UCF Volleyball, conference realignment, and college football week 1. So stick around because Nighttime starts right now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check your stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Welcome back to Nighttime. Thank you for joining us. I am Maddie Glass, and today we are joined by Lexi Zolo to talk some UCF volleyball. Lexi, how are you doing today?
I am doing great today. When I heard we were talking about UCF volleyball, I knew I had to come on.
Yes, so let's give everyone a bit of a preview on how UCF volleyball is doing so far. As it stands right now, they have a 6-1 record where they hosted the UCF Challenge last week where they got their first loss, and they went 3-1 overall in the tournament. They beat FIU, Mississippi State, and Alabama with their one loss coming to Wake Forest in 5 sets, so a close game. Now, Lexi, I want to throw it to you. Who has been a player that you think has been standing out so far on this hot start for the UCF volleyball team?
I am definitely going with 26, Emily Wilson. She was phenomenal. I was able to sit courtside with Maddie because we actually intern and we take stats at these games, so I was really able to pay attention. And I watched the Mississippi State game, and I just noticed that she was killing it. I mean, literally, because she actually has a record of 16 kills now, and that is a career high for her. And she was just on fire that game. I mean, I love watching it. She was great. I mean, she had a lot of great attacks, and I really think she's going to take off this year, and I'm very excited to see what she's going to do the rest of this season.
I would agree. She's had a very hot start to this season. Her 78 total kills, that's first in the team, and she's a very versatile player also, being second in digs with 57. So all around a great player, both offensively and defensively. Now, Maddie, who's a player that you think has been standing out so far?
I've really liked watching freshman Ava Amor. She's a 6'5" outside hitter. She had a season high in kills last game against Alabama State, had 11 in the match. 66 on the year. She's a freshman, and really, like, when you watch her, she stands out. Like, she's super tall, she's athletic, and she's playing really well. And then redshirt freshman Abby Schomer, she's our setter this year. She has 273 assists and has just been playmaking all over the field. She's like the point guard for volleyball. And then I think head coach Shitty Maurer has done a good job. Tyler, how do you assess her performance so far?
I mean, it's been great. Obviously, 6-1 start. This continued dominance from last year that we saw is something I really like to see. This team, new coach, we were questioning, it's like, are they going to gel well together? They lost McKenna Melville, superstar. But it seems people have really stepped up in the role, especially Emily Wilson. And a player that I would like to highlight very briefly real quick, Abby Henson, who has been awesome. And if you remember from last week, she was my nightlight. She's second in the team with kills with 68. And she has just been an all-around offensive star. Not so much the two-way player that Emily Wilson is, but I think she's been great keeping this UCF attack up consistently, and so their offense is always going at all cylinders.
Yeah, Abby's had some key blocks too. Her and Emily Wilson go up, Ava Amor, and they block it. And I think volleyball blocks are like one of the most impressive things to watch in sports because it happens so fast. And it's just really cool to see the defensive side of the players.
No, I really like watching volleyball for that exact same reason because it is so fast-paced. There's always a ton of action. It's super entertaining.
Yeah, so the Knights host the UCF Invitational next. They play FSU tonight, I believe, or maybe North Texas plays FSU tonight. So there's some neutral volleyball matches. So, Tyler, what do you think about FSU? It's more of a challenging opponent, ACC school, big Power 5 school. What do you think?
This will be another tough contest. Again, we haven't had really many real matches, or only 2 being Mississippi State and Wake Forest. So we're 1-1 in Power 5 play. I think, though, that UCF will get the win here. Wake Forest was a 5-set game that was a nail-biter to the very end. And they'll also play North Texas later in this tournament, who I think they should easily crush. Lexi, what about you? What are your thoughts on these upcoming games?
I honestly think that we are going to do great this weekend. I really think that FSU will be a tougher game, but we're both not ranked, so I feel like it'll be an even matchup, but I really do feel like that we got it, and I think that we're going to do great.
Yeah, I agree. And moving on to my nightlight is a certain soccer player who's having a great start to her season.
Welcome to HCF Hot Takes. I'm Johnny Jackson. We've got Emily Aaron to my right and Maluka Costa to my left.
Hello and welcome to our segment of Hot Ones. I'm here with Noah Kemper and Grant
Wheeler.
Yep, I knew that. Grant Wheeler.
Listen, I'm a Bulls fan, but I just can't ever argue against LeBron. I watched him my whole life.
I've been going back and forth with this debate for a long time. It's got to be Michael Jordan.
Whatever she wanted. I would wake up in a maid costume for Doja Cat.
Brutal.
Jeffrey Laux, no question.
Richie, I would give it to Richie.
It is not Richie. It is not Richie.
No, it's Jeff.
Richie's pronouns are he, they, because he cannot be him.
What?
Oh, wait a second.
I'm gonna have to also agree and say Jeff. He always is spiffy.
It might be Cameron. Cameron's had some good fits.
Out of the women, Norelli always dresses really, really cute.
Oh, that went so awful.
It's basketball.
College football, I think, is the best sport to watch.
If you don't like soccer, it's because you suck at it.
I think college football is the best.
Thanks for watching.
If you didn't know, it is fifth-year senior forward Ellie Morano. She has 3 goals on the season after scoring 2 in the win versus FAU and a .417 shots on goal percentage. Now, moving on to segment 2, we're joined by Noah and Patrick. Welcome to the show, guys. How are you doing?
It's good to be back once again.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, Patrick, first time this season. So moving right along, we have huge news. It's been a topic for over a year now. Conference realignment. The ACC just announced that they are going to be adding SMU, Cal, and Stanford. Noah, right off the bat, what are your thoughts on those teams joining the Atlantic Coast Conference?
I mean, I kind of like it, actually. I think it'll be a good fit for them in the ACC Coastal. Good to see another AAC school getting out of there, get into a new conference. So it would definitely be interesting and shake things up.
Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's good for SMU. They have finally kind of made their way back into a Power 5 conference since they were absolutely destroyed by a one-year ban way back when. As far as Cal and Stanford, just trying to survive, stay above water. A lot of travel for them, but the ACC is just trying to also stay above water. So.
Yeah, that's actually something I want to touch on with all the new teams in different conferences, the travel. So obviously football, they're going to travel once a week, but in teams like a women's soccer team, a tennis team, they're traveling from, those East Coast cities to California. How is that going to impact the season for them, Tyler?
I think it's really tough on these student athletes. And I want to stress the student part of that because that is what these kids are primarily. We go back to the ACC, for example, California and Stanford. They'll be playing games against Clemson in all sports. That is a travel distance of over 2,400 miles. These kids are going to be having professional level schedules when it comes to traveling. This is something that I feel like can hurt their education in the long term, and it's why I'm not such a big fan of all these big conference moves, because it feels like we're not looking at the players. We're not focusing on them. This is like, this is just a big cash grab for the conferences and the schools. We want to get the biggest media deals so we can give more money to our athletics programs. Like, California is in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I just don't understand that, and I find that very frustrating, and I feel like these players are becoming more and more dehumanized as this process continues.
Yeah, geographically, it's a little tough to, digest, but moving on to the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is essentially dead. They have 2 teams left, or 2 schools left, Washington State, Oregon State. Patrick, what are your thoughts on the Pac-12 dying?
Well, it's definitely really unfortunate that a conference that's been around for almost 100 years is going to be gone, essentially. I think they made some bad moves 10 years ago, trying to make their own decisions as far as TV deals, and now they were left with a streaming deal, and everybody just decided to leave even before that deal came. And like UCLA and USC obviously left about a year ago, or decided that they were going to leave. And it's really unfortunate. I think what Tyler said about all of the travel is definitely right for the student athletes. The Pac-12 is going to not play very many games like that area. The West Coast is not going to have very many games against each other. So it's just really unfortunate for all of those teams and those schools.
And then another thing to touch on is the ACC. Clemson and LSU, there's rumors they're looking to leave. The ACC is locked into a media deal that until 2036, and they're going to be making over $30 million less than an SEC Big Ten school. Noah, like, what's going to happen with Clemson and FSU next?
I mean, honestly, I feel like the past few years, I think the ACC has been, because they used to be right there at the SEC, but recently it has gone down in shambles. And with the loss, if they lose these two schools now, that honestly is the biggest hit to them. They might become the next Pac-12 because they're not competing with the Big Ten. They're not competing with the SEC. They might not compete with the Big 12 after that.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, yeah, they would be dead in the water, essentially, if they lost those teams.
And I personally don't know how good of a move that would be for Clemson. I'll touch more on Clemson later in the show, but they are a team that is definitely on the decline here in the ACC. As for FSU, I think a move to a bigger conference, say like the SEC or even the Big 12, if they wanted to, would be more realistic, and they'd be able to get it done, especially with the talent on their roster in football and other sports. But again, I feel like they're jumping the gun on this too quickly, and they're making these decisions rashly just as a cash grab.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like another thing is like some of the teams, it just doesn't make sense. Like when I think of Big Ten football, I'm thinking of Michigan, Ohio State, like, you know, hard-nosed football. I'm not thinking of a USC, you know, air raid offense. So Patrick, do you think like it's going to be, what are you looking forward to seeing next year?
I am looking forward to seeing some of these matchups. I think it's obviously, I've already said that it's really unfortunate that essentially the Pac-12 is just going to be decimated. But I think it'll be fun to see USC versus Michigan or Ohio State. And it's fun to kind of see these teams traveling in the regular season. I mean, a lot of the games during the season don't matter anyway. Teams play FCS teams play out-of-conference teams that are cupcakes. So at the very least, we're going to see some really good conference matchups and some really good conference championship games, which in the Big Ten, there hasn't been very many great conference championship games. It's essentially just been Ohio State and Michigan deciding who's going to go to the playoff, and then the next week is just a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of that is with all these new teams, they need to get rid of the division format in conferences. That way we can see all these good games. But anyway, that's all the time we have for this segment. Now I want to see if you can guess who my nightlight is. He is a football player on the team, a sophomore, and that's all I'll tell you for now, but stick around because we got one more segment here on Nighttime. Hello and welcome back. If you couldn't guess, my nightlight was wide receiver Xavier Townshed. In the win against Kent State, he had 5 receptions for 81 yards and scored his first career touchdown and UCF's first ever Big 12 touchdown, I might add. But anyway, now let's get into segment 3. We're going to be talking some college football, UCF and week 1 as a whole. And joining us are Ezrah Hines and returning from last segment, Patrick. How are you boys doing so far today?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm testing my boundaries here, talking about college football today. I'm excited.
I'm still doing okay.
You're still doing great.
Yeah,
You're still here.
Nothing's
changed. All right. So we'll start off first with a preview of UCF's next game against Boise State. They'll be playing at Boise State. Boise State last week lost 56-19 to Washington, a absolute beatdown, I might add. UCF is the very clear favorite here. Now, guys, what do you think is going to happen in this game? Do you think UCF will put up a similar performance as to what they had last week, or will this be more of a tight contest?
I actually think this is going to be a very tight contest, low-key. This is a game that probably puts us on the map or humbles us completely, because what Boise State suffered with last game, they could not guard the pass. And what can't we do? Throw the ball. So that's going to kind of scare me for this game a little bit. But I do think we might come out with a win. And if we do, that could mean big things for us, possibly even getting ranked, to be honest. So I want to be a believer in UCF. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that this could go two ways, certainly. I think Boise State's a really good team. They did face a Washington squad that could even be competing for a playoff spot this year because they're definitely a good team in the Pac-12. But overall, I think that this is definitely a winnable game for us. If we can just stay sharp like we were against Kent State, just somewhat in this game on the road, I think I like our chances. Certainly, we have a shot at being ranked. Next week, we have Villanova, which is an FCS team, so won't do much for our resume after that. But I could definitely see us entering Week 4 ranked if we win this game pretty handily.
For sure.
I think the Knights are going to win. I think it's going to be a close game. But moving on, back to Week 1. I know, Patrick, you want to get right into it. Colorado upsets TCU 45-42. It was highlight performances all over the board. Give me your thoughts on Week 1.
Okay, so essentially, Colorado just had a humongous overturn of their entire school. They have an insane amount of transfers and an unbelievable amount of new starters, and they even have a couple freshmen who are starting. So this team is a completely new look from last year. They had one win last year, and they've obviously already matched that against the runner-up from last year, TCU. This team is really good. I don't think they're to be messed with. As far as Pac-12 championship chances, I don't know if they are that good just yet. The defense needs to shore some things up. But as far as Deion Sanders and is this real and is he going to turn this program around, I think we're already seeing it in this transfer portal age in college football.
Yeah, I would agree. And then one standout performance was Travis Hunter. He was playing cornerback. He was playing wide receiver. He had 11 receptions, 119 yards, 3 tackles, and an interception. Ezra, is he in your Heisman rankings?
He is. I do have Travis Hunter in my Heisman rankings. Like, you cannot be that good and not even, like, get at least some recognition for it. He played 200-something snaps, and he just, like, how do you have that much cardio in your game? I would literally be, like, on the floor after 40, and this man decided, you know what, I'm going to be the best player on both sides of the ball for today. So I would 100% have him somewhere up there.
Tyler, do you have any thoughts on this Colorado performance?
I mean, Deion Sanders, he knew before all of us. We doubted him, and we shouldn't have. I was especially impressed with his son, Shooter Sanders. In his first ever FBS action, he sets a school record passing over 500 yards. I mean, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, he is just a culture changer, and he has really turned this Colorado team around for the better, it looks.
And then, Patrick, you touched on this, but their team is pretty much entirely built on the transfer portal. And we saw another team have just impact players right away from the transfer portal in FSU. So what does that say about college football as of now? There was no tape on this Colorado team last year, and they come out, they upset TCU. Is it going to be more of a struggle next week against Nebraska, but there's more tape on them, or do you think they're just going to win next week?
That's actually a really good question. That's not something I've thought about before. I think having tape on Shedeur Sanders would help, like whoever's going to face them down the road this season. But I think overall this team is so dynamic just in general that just a little bit of tape from one game won't really like make a difference as far as whether a defense is going to stop them and completely shut them down. They dropped 45 points, and they looked electric doing it. I think it's a good angle to think about, and they will slow down. They'll kind of regress to the mean a bit, but this Colorado team is for real.
Yeah, so they're now ranked number 22. TCU has gone unranked. Ezra, do you think TCU should be ranked or just no?
No. Why should they be ranked?
Clemson's still ranked.
Okay, if we're playing that way, Clemson shouldn't be ranked, and TCU should be above.
We'll get to Clemson, don't you worry.
Get to Clemson right now, Tyler.
All right, so I think a great transition from talking about Colorado and how just amazing they've been is Clemson, and I'd like to highlight specifically Dabo Swinney. So obviously Monday they lost by multiple touchdowns to Duke. It was embarrassing. They were the number 9 team losing to unranked Duke, or number 8 team, excuse me. And now they have fallen all the way to 25. And I hope this is a wake-up call for you, Dabo. College football has changed. You are way out of your league at this point. It's not 2017, 2019. You don't have Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun anymore. You need to evolve or die. Look at how Colorado has done such a great turnaround in just one game. Deion Sanders has embraced the transfer portal. He has brought in his guys. He has gotten them to buy in. Meanwhile, what has Dabo been doing? Pray to God that hopefully we have a real offense this year. I don't know. And he's getting these great top 10 recruiting classes every year, and that talent is not developing. Your number 1 quarterback from a few years ago, DJ Uiagalelei, he's now at Oregon State, and he had one of the best performances in week 1 from a quarterback. And Cade Klubnik against, again, the football powerhouse that is Duke, apparently, laid an egg.
Yeah, I think Duke, it was really, it wasn't an entertaining game. It was kind of a blowout, but Duke did storm the field before the game was over. I thought that was entertaining. And then moving on to probably the primetime game of the weekend, LSU, FSU. FSU dominated. Patrick, is FSU a contender, or do you believe in them?
Well, before the game, I would have said no. I bet $50 on LSU to cover, and I'm unfortunately out of money now. So I have to I guess I'll ride with FSU. I think that they're pretty good. As far as the ACC is concerned, if Clemson is going to lose their opening game against Duke, then who's really in front of them? North Carolina. I like FSU's chances. Ezrah?
Yeah, I gotta agree. FSU is looking pretty good. I mean, you got the person who's going to come second behind Caleb Williams this year. So you're standing pretty tall. You got a good transfer. Johnny Wilson had a great game, 7 receptions, 104 yards. And then Keon Coleman, 9 receptions, 122 yards, 3 touchdowns. This is.
You think Jordan Travis is a Heisman candidate?
I definitely do. Especially after this game. He looked fantastic that entire game. I'm going to 100% say he's going to be up there by the end of the season.
Travis was great. He had 1 silly interception, but overall he made smart decisions. And I think I was impressed with Florida State's defense, really. LSU couldn't get anything in the run game, and their wide receivers were just kind of a mess overall, and mainly their play calling. I think, the first possession of the game, they get down to the red zone. They're in the red zone for I felt 7 straight plays and couldn't get a touchdown. So I think FSU really set the table right there. And then in the second half, it was just a dominant performance. And then so FSU, their next big matchup is September 23rd versus Clemson. So are we taking FSU in that game? Just looking ahead.
We're taking FSU. Anyone should. This, especially against a Clemson team that is on just such a historic decline. FSU proved they are legit against LSU last night. And you mentioned their defense, Maddie, and there's one player I would like to highlight, Jared Weiss, their pass rusher. He is going to be a future first-round pick this year. I project somewhere in the top 10, most likely. He was dominant in their performance. But FSU should be, I think, considered very serious playoff contenders.
Yeah, they rose to number 4 in the rankings, and LSU fell to number 14. Ezra, I think you said Clemson shouldn't be ranked. What do you think LSU should be ranked?
I think LSU should still be up there. I think they just had they just came up against really, really tough competition. So this is about the right.
Yeah, it is only week 1, so I'm trying not to overreact, but I was the only one that picked FSU in primetime picks, so I don't know. Maybe you should follow my ideas, Patrick, and you won't be out of some money. But Jaden Daniels, I don't think he really impressed. Tyler, did he stick out to you at all?
Jaden Daniels, oh my goodness. He was so disappointing. He was a top 5 Heisman favorite. A guy I told you last week, I think you should watch out. This is a guy who can be very serious in the Heisman race. He's in, I believe, his 6th year playing college football, and he just put up just a terrible, bland performance. He's not reading the field. He's not going through his progressions. There's no real zip on the ball, and he seems to be bailing on the pocket, relying on his legs too much, when we should be seeing this growth as a passer at this point. This was supposed to be his breakout year. Now, I understand FSU, rough starting game at a neutral site, and really it wasn't because it was in Florida. So I think long-term LSU can recover from this and still be contenders for the SEC title and maybe even the playoffs, but Jaden Daniels' Heisman hopes, I think, are as good as done.
And then real quick, I just want to touch on another disappointing team, the Florida Gators. They came out just a total mess. They lost to Utah in Utah. Utah was without their starting quarterback, Cameron Rising. So, Patrick, did anything stick out to you about Florida? Like, they had bad penalties. They looked unprepared. Is this just a week one thing, or is this something to be concerned about for the Gators?
Yeah, I think Billy Napier is probably going to be fired within the next 2 years. In all honesty, their schedule in 2024 with Texas and Oklahoma coming to the conference looks pretty crazy. They already have Florida State, obviously, every single year, and that maybe could be penciled in as a loss already.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I mean, I don't want to make too many like bold claims after week one, but this Florida team and this hire is just, they really, they won this game last year. It would have just set the program in the right direction if they had got this win. And like you said, they looked unprepared, had too many just dumb penalties. I think the Gator fan base is definitely like on notice. They're very worried.
A little impatient.
And I can't really blame them for any of that.
I think, Florida does have the number 3 recruiting class for next year. So I think, you give him more time. It was like with Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen was a great coach, bad recruiter. And now Billy Napier, good recruiter. We don't know about coaching yet. But getting to our primetime picks of the week, let's discuss. We are doing Texas at Alabama. Now, starting off with Patrick and Ezra, give me some breakdown on Texas at Alabama.
I think we were kind of worried about last week with Alabama with their quarterback situation. I think they've got that pretty solved now, to be honest. So I want to say that Alabama has a pretty good chance of winning this game. I'm going to say exactly that. I think Alabama takes this. I think it'll be a closer game than usual, but I think they take it by maybe a touchdown, probably less, to be honest.
I think this will be a closer game than usual as well, and I think Texas will be disappointed with how many points that they win by, because they're going to win by probably a touchdown, and they'll be much better than that. I think they'll hold Alabama's scoring down a little bit. I like Jalen Milroe, but I think against Middle Tennessee State, an FCS squad, like many of the teams played this past week, isn't a tough competition. And I think Quinn Ewers had his best quarter of football in his life last year against Alabama. I think he can repeat that. If you remember last year, it was a very close game anyway.
20
so
to 19.
I think Texas will pull it out.
Yeah, Tyler, now you're 0-1 in primetime picks. You guys are too, but you can blame Camden and Oat for that. Not your fault. Tyler, you're 0-1. What are you doing? I think I know what you're picking.
Need you even ask? Horns down. Bama is going to be winning this game. This game is at Tuscaloosa. They have the home environment. Jalen Milroe, I think, is a guy who seems to be a man on a mission to prove that he is worthy of being the starting quarterback. Give me Bama for this week.
I really want to pick Texas, but I'm also going Bama. But that's all the time we have for this week on Nighttime. Stay tuned for next week. Thanks.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, I don't got time to laugh.